Welcome back to Canning Questions and Answers. This is part 4. Today we're going to look into a little bit more of the questions that y'all have left behind. One of them is, can I stack jars in a water bath canner or a pressure canner? Absolutely. So when you're pressure canning, we're going to start with that one. All right, if you decide that you want to do this and you want to stack jars, you're going to need some kind of a barrier between the jars that's going to allow the steam to rise up. They come in different shapes and sizes, but the most important part is some kind of a wire rack to allow that steam to go through, just like so. Most of the time you only need about a quart of water in your pressure canner because it works with pressure, not necessarily the water. Now, in a water bath canner, this is just a different kind of rack. All right, in your water bath canners, the difference between that and a pressure canner is when you stack them, you're going to need the water level to still be a minimum of 1 inch, absolute bare minimum of 1 inch over the tallest jar. Ideally, try to get 2 inches because water evaporates. It will splash out depending on the size of your canner. And you don't want to lose too much water to the point where it's no longer covering those jars, or you're going to have to process again. Why do you remove the rings, and do you suggest others do the same? So, as we discussed with botulism, you want your time and your pressure, your time and your temperature, to be of certain levels in order to prevent the bacteria from growing and making you sick. Now, how can you tell if everything is sitting up on your shelves if it's good or not? Well, one of the ways is to remove the rings. Now, this ring specifically, this came from my mama. She made this. So in order to send it to me, she had to keep the ring on it because there is an elevation difference between Florida and Montana. So in that shipping process, you don't want your lids to pop off. So she put the ring on it. Now, I've not removed this ring ever. You saw that date, 2019, so it's still sealed. So we're good. Now, I'm actually going to keep that off. So when if your foods begin to turn, and remember that will happen if you did not get a good seal to begin with, or if you didn't process them for the correct time and the correct temperature, because when bacteria grows, it produces chemicals, it produces air, it produces oxygen, produces carbon dioxide, right? It produces some form of air that is going to eventually release this lid. Now, if that lid is being held down, I won't be able to tell, right? So when that lid pops up and new oxygen gets in, that food's going to turn colors. It's going to start to stink, and you will see it really quickly because you don't have a ring holding it down. So this brings us into, how can you tell if the food is bad? 1, keep your rings off. Your lids will pop off because of all of that buildup of the bacterial growth. You will see it and you will smell it. Your sense of smell is going to be your #1 cue. If it smells off, don't risk it. All right, keep those rings off. But that's how you can tell, is a visual inspection and the smell. You know when food has gone bad. The last question is actually one I've seen a lot of. Can you water bath things instead of pressure canning? So according to the USDA, which is what I'm basing my entire series off of, no. All right, and the reason for that is the time and temperature are different with pressure canning and water bath canning. When you water bath something, the water level has to be over the jars. It doesn't matter if you're double stacking or not. That water needs to be over all of it. With your little wire rack in the middle, remember this, okay? Has to be over. Now, anybody that has cooked for more than 5 minutes in their lifetime, what happens when we boil water? the water level slowly diminishes, right? Now we've got a lid on it, so it kind of helps a little bit, but still that water is evaporating and those water levels are going down, which is why we typically start with 3 to 4 inches over, and as it processes, that water level begins to drop, and then when you're done, you'll have maybe that 1 to 2 inches over it still. In order to reach the correct temperature for the correct time, for something, say something that needs to be, I don't have anything here. Well, this. All right, let's use this as an example. These two things would need to be pressure canned. And the reason for that is they are not sugary, they are not salty, right? And they are not acidic. Those are the 3 things you need to have in order to water bath can. So since these are not, they have to be pressure canned. Now, in a pressure canner, the temperature internally gets higher than any boiling water, and that is because of that pressure. All right, your foods reach well over 230 or more degrees inside of a pressure canner. You cannot reach that with boiling water. So the only way to make up for that loss of heat is by time. Let's say, for example, this has to be processed for, I don't know, let's say with your elevation, 40 minutes. All right. Pressure canned at 40 minutes. In order for you to water bath can it, you would have to water bath can for 7 hours. That's pretty intense, all right? So keeping in mind water evaporates, as you've got this in your water bath canner, that water level is continuously dropping, all right? 7 hours is a long time to process something. Now, what happens if you add water to boiling water? It stops boiling. And if it stops boiling, you have to start your process all over again. The time, all of it. It doesn't matter if you are at 6 hours and 59 minutes. That stops boiling or the water level drops, you start all over again. All over again. So, can you do it? Absolutely you can. That's Rebel canning. Do I advise it? I personally do not. I would say stick with the basics, stick with the rules. If you decide that you want to branch out later, that's great, but get yourself a solid foundation to where you understand how canning works, why we do it the way we do it, and then if you decide you want to branch out, you've got a firm foundation to start from and you can experiment from there. I hope this has helped answer many of your amazing questions. Keep them coming, and I will continue this series and continue answering your questions. Thanks for watching.